So I'd like to introduce Mike Reynolds. I'm sure you guys have read enough and heard enough from him. I think he's going to get up for a moment and speak. This man is truly a man of action. He doesn't have a whole lot of words, but you can learn all you need to know of him if you just watch him. He reaches out everywhere he goes. When I was in New Orleans, I remember them playing around with trying to get down there to help out with some Erships during Katrina. And you see him respond to natural disasters all over. These guys are pretty awesome. But here he is, Mike Reynolds.
Thanks, Ben. Thanks, everybody, for coming. We're constantly learning ourselves, and we're like constantly seeing that, we do travel the world. I'm going to show you a few projects briefly. I want you to, I think, as Ben said, the best thing is to go out there and see it, feel it. We're on this planet, on our world, our planet, our civilization, we're in a precarious place. I think everybody agrees. And it's not politics that's going to steer us out of it, and it's not religion that's going to steer us out of it, and it's certainly not economics that's going to steer us out of it. To me, it looks like it's education, and that's what our whole company is starting to be about. And it's not just us providing an education, it's, all right, technology. It's us getting an education. We're getting an education. What you're going to see is our ongoing education, and we're just sharing it, and people are sharing it with us. It's like, the thing is like a snowball. More and more people, more and more diversified groups, and everybody's moving in a similar direction, and it is coming more and more into focus. I'll briefly hit the product that has come out of this whole thing for us in terms of the real world is what we call the global model Ership. There's been a lot of talk about it today. I'm not going to dwell on it. I'll just show you a few that are around the world. This is Montana. And of course, you've seen how they work. I'm not going to go into that. These are the tubes being installed. And and Phil showed you this, but the global model Ership is really the foundation of this, the real expression of all of this. But they're all over the world, as you can see here. It comes in small studio versions, up to 3 and 4 bedrooms. This is Canada, Lasqueti Island. We go with like 50 people, and we put this up in 5 weeks. And the Wyoming project, that's what it looked like before and after. That was 3 weeks. And interestingly enough, we've taken it to places as conservative as Brighton, England. Brighton, England, right on the coast there. We got this global model Ership little village approved. The papers announced it. And what happened was we broke ground, actually. And right in the middle of the project, as they broke ground, they discovered dinosaur bones. Project over. But the thing is, this was a milestone because this fairly radical building got approved in fairly conservative England as for a compound of them. So to us, that was a step in the right direction. Whether we got to build it or not, it's probably good that we didn't get to build it because I really would have lost my shirt on it. But there is the news talking about it in Brighton. So it's really, this global model Ership is the foundation or basis. This is Holland. I'm just showing you all over the world. France. And recently, we just came back a week or so ago from near Calgary in Canada. And 50 people again put one up in 5 weeks. And so these are global models. That's the one in Baja to illustrate again that they cool themselves as well as heat themselves. And, you know, there's a lot of people working on this with us and on every aspect of it. We're talking, you know, all aspects of physics and biology, and it's a lot and it takes a lot of people to pull this off. It's many people here, many people all over the planet, and we are thrilled to have this alliance, so to speak, with UNM. This is a ground-up animation. I think it's not necessary to show that. But these are more elaborate versions of it up there in Colorado Springs. And I wanted to get to this, a village of them. If you're doing a village like this, any developer will tell you you're going to spend years and millions getting infrastructure and you know, utilities together. To start a village like this of the global model Earthships, you just start building the building, because every building has got its own utilities. So it's just it's a developer's dream to not have to spend millions and months, I mean years, on infrastructure. And this particular one, we're riding bicycles from one building to the other through the black water treatment system. Now, that brings us to our work around the world based on this building. And this building has taken us, 40 years to evolve and get to where it is now, and it's like automobiles. It's not going to stop evolving. It's going to keep evolving like a 51 Ford has evolved into, the 2014 BMW. These things are moving along a similar path. But like when the earthquake happened in Haiti, we were asked to go there because we make shelter, we harvest water, people thought we had something to offer. And I'm saying, like, what have we got to offer? We got a we got a $400,000 global model Ership here. What can that do to help Haiti? And this is what I'm saying is our education. We need to take this information that we have learned over 40 years and get it synthesized into something that more of the world can get their hands on. Because there is 80% of the world is not like us. We're like under 20% of the world, people like you and me. And all of the sustainable, LEED, green conversations seem to be about us. When I go out in the world, I see the 80% of the other people, they're not even talked about. They're not even considered. They're the people I see in Haiti. So when we went there, and on many of these around the world trips and disaster relief things we've done, it has been an education for us to realize that we need to start addressing all of the people on the planet, not just 20%. So this is what we ended up doing in Haiti. I have a short video that shows how it came about. And so we went, and again, we were just thinking that we'd be lucky to do recon and maybe find a place to do something. Well, it turns out that Grassroots United is 10 minutes from the airport, and they have a little compound, and they provided us with a place to do it. So we show up there, and within an hour of landing, we're pounding tires. And one thing led to another, and we saw that we're going to get something done here, so we sent Marita out to get more tires, And she then the next day brought 40 people from one of the tent camps, and they ranged in age from 4 to 50. We ended up saying, oh my God, we might even get a building going here. So I bought some materials down there, some rebar and some cement. Marita took a couple of dozen of the kids and went out within a half a mile of the compound and gathered all the plastic bottles that we needed. And we did a simplified version of our hut design with a door and a window and a ferro-cement vaulted roof that is very lightweight amount of cement, but lots of steel, so this is a very earthquake-resistant design here, and hurricane-resistant. The bottom line is we were going for a recon, and in 4.5 days, due to just synchronicity and connections working out and so on, we ended up with a 12-foot diameter building built. Another interesting point was I just got my arm out of a cast from rotator cuff surgery. I was crippled. I couldn't do much. And Brian and Mike got the shits and vomiting to the point of almost dying. So yeah, we were in dire straits, and this still happened.
Yeah.
The reason it happened was the Haitians. They could do every aspect of it. They could pound the tires, they could lay the bottles. They did it all, learned it all, and were clear that this can be replicated. So far, we nosed around down there a little bit. There's lots of tents, there's some container things, but really there's nothing for the people yet. This is something that people can get their hands into. They can be building houses for themselves and each other and so on. I mean, this can really be way beyond just shelter. It can be a sort of an economic base or a currency for Haiti itself. So everybody that gave us anywhere from 10 to $100, thank you very much. Here's how it was used. We got a little over $7,000 in donations. And we fronted another $3 or so grand. We bought tickets for 4 people, we got shots for 4 people, and we bought materials. We bought them lunch every day that they worked for us. There were no fees, no salaries, no wages. We are talking direct use of money. Money goes straight to a building in Haiti and transportation to get there. Nothing goes through any bureaucratic salaries and commissions. You know, how do you track your $500 that you donated through some agency or whatever? You know, it just goes, and you get a little postcard or something. This, you've got a picture of where your money went, every dollar of it. And if we didn't raise any more money, I'm just going to the bank and get it. I'll borrow it, I'll finance it. Because now we're going to go back down mid-October and do a finishing hit on this thing and make it collect its own water, contain and treat its own sewage with a little outdoor courtyard and a flush toilet, and have its own power system. With the most important part is Haitians from the tent camps helping us and learning. You may as well call this building a demonstration unit, because what they're going to do is bring people in to this compound and show it to them. And of course, the ones that got to work on it are going to be talking about how to do it and probably starting to do it once they can get a place. Where we'll go next for land will be where it can be for the people. We're even thinking of, like, can we tear down a few tents in Tent City and throw up some of these? If we got a windfall of funding, we would start a little village, and then we'd just go back and forth to Haiti for the next few years. We'd start an Ership academy. I mean, there's thousands and thousands of people down there living 12 in a tent. There's no end in sight to what we can do if we get the money. The thing is, this, in 4.5 days, this hit to the very heart of the people that are living in the tent cities. And it brought them out. And they participated in this. And this was a real thing, not a hypothetical thing. We were working with them. They were working with us. We weren't a bunch of whiteys going down there and making something that we wouldn't live in ourselves, but trying to give them some charity. I would love to live in the building that we built down there. I love that little building. And so we got together eyeball to eyeball with the Haitian people, with no bureaucrats or politicians in between us. And that is the key. We're sharing what we've learned over 40 years, and they're giving us a lot of light back. From the little kids to the older people, they got inspired by this. They got lit up by this. And we got lit up by the fact that they got lit up. It was an outrageous situation. the last day when they were waiting in line to hold our hands and saying things like, if I have to die to get Earthships to Haiti, then I'm ready to die right now. And may God make you live a lot longer so that you can continue doing this. You know, not one of us were dry-eyed.
Michael, someone wants to give you a kiss.
Gonna get dirty. Oh, thank you. Merci. Everybody that donated time, guidance, coordination, or money, thank you from the bottom of my heart. We're going to go back in the car. So we've had, I'll just show you a couple, but we've had countless situations like this all over the world, and this is our education. And of course we're bringing it back, but I can't say enough about this showing us the 80% of the people that most of us don't really ever think about. They're out there, and why shouldn't all of this be available to them too? Because another reason to make that even more of a crisis is I'm not saying it's your fault or mine, but we developed world people are making the planet so it doesn't work for them anymore. They'd be fine without us. So we're looking at a whole holistic situation here that involves everybody. It started like decades ago when we were asked to go to Bolivia, and because people knew we were doing things, they asked us to go there. And it's usually pro bono. Some of them we finance, and now in recent history we've figured out a way to finance ourselves so that now we can go anywhere, anytime. But Bolivia was obviously they have tires and cans, and governments were building houses for them there outside La Paz, and they looked all architectural and nice, but nobody was living in them because they were cold and nobody can afford fuel. And that's the case. We build conventional housing for people and people can't afford to live in it. So Bolivia was kind of the beginning of this kind of work. We went to Honduras after Hurricane Mitch. Same thing. Most of these places that we go to, we haven't got a clue what we're going to do. We just go, we pack up a few tools, a mosquito net, get some shots, and hit the ground running, trying to do something. And actually, it's our education, it's our learning experience. We're getting so that we are we're pretty good at this in terms of getting something to happen. It'll never be perfect, and our global model Ership for here is never going to be perfect, but we're moving in a direction that is making things better for us and for the rest of the world. Honduras was the same story. We didn't know what we were going to do. But here's the thing. Wherever we go on this planet, they have tires. They're indigenous to the planet. Cans are indigenous. Bottles are indigenous. We have found some indigenous materials, and we're perfecting ways to use them. They are not, garbage is something we, in our 20% developed world, invented. They're really, in my world now, there's really no such thing as garbage. So the Honduras thing ended up teaching us a lot. Another one is we went to South Dakota, the Sioux Reservation up there. They just took us out a crummy little asphalt road that turned into a gravel road for about 45 minutes, and then we turned off of the gravel road and drove 45 minutes through the fields with the buffalo and whatever else and rattlesnakes, and they just pointed over there and said, this land belongs to the descendants of Crazy Horse, build it there. That was our building permit. And so what that showed me was the Native American lands that we have pushed them to and pushed them to and pushed them to, after we discover uranium and we push them somewhere else and whatever, they have land. They do have a lot of land. They're sovereign, so they don't have our rules. And now that they have gambling, they have money. So with land, no rules, and money, they could pass the developed world up, you know. And that's the same way in Canada. And so I'm seeing that a lot of this planet is freedom to really move forward. A lot of the developed world got their heads up there, you know what. So it's harder there. Belgium, Europe, you know, Mexico, Japan. This deal that we did in Japan, this is in a pavilion. It's a pavilion in a park, and they made us do this big retaining wall in the back of it here, and in addition to building the building, and it was good because a couple months later they had torrential rains and it washed everything away in that park except the Ership. And in Japan, you know, we get, you know, it's not all work. I mean, it is work, but it's in Japan. We were there 10 days. They gave us 3 welcome to Japan parties with beer and sake, and 3 going away parties with beer and sake. So do the math. That's why I have alcohol poisoning now. Scotland, working in the rain, cold rain, but it worked there. Nicaragua, Phil showed you some of Nicaragua. Again, you can't get away with doing this kind of sculptural, shoot-from-the-hip biotexture, let's say, in the developed world. But we have developed, because of this, we have developed techniques. You know, there's a catch-22 here. You got to get it approved before you can build it. You have to build it before you can experiment with it. So you can't do anything. Whereas in these third world countries, you can experiment and develop and evolve. And so I attribute all of this work around the planet. It's really our education. People think we're going around helping people. We're really going around for our own education. Plus, it's a lot of fun. It translates into a lot of sketches and drawings for things that haven't been built yet. We've had a lot of input for orphanages in Africa because Africa is just a war-torn country, and there's a lot of orphans there, and this kind of stuff would work great for them. Of course, after the tsunami, we were asked to go there, and I will say, I have to always point out that I went in when we got the email saying the time for dropping meds and food from helicopters is over. We need somebody to come and show us a way to rebuild and begin again. I took that email to Sentinel Bank, asked for 50 grand on a Tuesday, and on Thursday I had it. And that's why we were able to go. Of course, I'm still paying it back. But we got there and pounding tires, lorry tires, big tires, having to mine the dirt to do it with. But took the crew all went for free. What I'm saying is there's a lot of people putting a lot of themselves into this whole thing, and it's contagious. It's becoming like a virus, basically, a good virus. And so that's just what we did in the Andaman Islands, using and perfecting the same techniques. And there wasn't, with those kids, I offered them, a rupee a bottle for gathering plastic bottles. They cleaned up the island. Of course, they got in fights over the money. These women, this is a picture after they mixed cement for us all day. I mean, I look like a train wreck to start the day when I'm there, and they look like this after mixing cement all day. The men sat under the veranda in the shade. The hurricanes on the coast of Mexico, on the Gulf, blew away a fishing village. We were asked to go there, and we made the same thing. And again, they've got the indigenous materials that we use, the tires, the cans, the bottles. So it was no problem in getting them, no problem in teaching people how to do it. And we made a building there that does turn the wind and harvest water. And then, of course, the Haiti earthquake happened. And like I said, we didn't know what we were going to do there because we were all wrapped up in our developed world global model Ership, being all sustainable and green, and costing $300,000. But we went, and this is what it looked like after the second hit. We did 2 hits. We did 1 hit, and we came back, raised money, and went back for another hit. And we did, to me, this was one of our most educational situations for us, because me and the crew, you know, the ones that were dying, we all sat around in this courtyard after we got the building built and drank beer, because we got done a little early, and we were all talking about how we'd like to live here. I mean, this is a courtyard of a building that was built to give away. We sat around in that courtyard and said, you know, this building, you know, took 14 days to build. Why don't we do this for ourselves? Why don't we do this for a lot of people in the developed world? And then when we did the rest of the math, we said it took 14 days to build, but it also took in the neighborhood of $10,000 in materials. And it's a nice little villa. I mean, if you can bring back 14 days, if you can ask people to give up 14 days of their life and 10 grand to begin to have a life that is not a detriment to the planet, it's definitely going to mushroom. So it was a little more difficult to bring it back here to Taos, New Mexico, where it's cold. And so it made the 10 grand grow to 15 for materials, but that's not a big deal. So that was the beginning of this thing that Kirsten and some of them have talked about, called the Simple Survival Unit. You'll see them out there. They are the result of what we learned in Haiti. There's our little bucket flush toilet. It was the only flush toilet for miles around. People were waiting in line to use it. It's no wonder they have E. coli there. You know, one of the ways they have for human waste is they have parachutes laying around from dropping meds and food. So they'll spread and parachutes are big, spread a parachute out on the ground, and everybody will come use it as a toilet for a while, and then they'll fold it all up on itself and drag it off somewhere. That's sanitation. So for them to have a flush toilet was fantastic. And we also had all they have is bucket showers down there, but this is the most sanitary bucket shower. It's for miles around as well. Phil showed you this diagram. It's taking all of our systems and putting them to use on an ultra simple level. Of course, no codes are involved, but it's plumbing without plumbing. And of course, the outlaw septic tank. Now you have lots of those down there now. And so this is the little villa that ended up in Haiti after we left, after our second hit. And we have plans. This is the floor plan of it, with its little courtyard in the middle, and the building, and the toilet, the cistern, the shower. So our effort now in Haiti is we have taught people how to do it. They're down there replicating some aspects of these things now. We have a whole little army down there that we've trained, and so we're going to go for replicating these because they don't need infrastructure. They make their own power with a little one-room power system. You know, they were down there, 12 people in a 10 by 10 tent living, but they all had cell phones. So we made the little one-room power system that will charge their cell phones, give them a little light, and run their little sewage pump. And so these little villas can be replicated and make a reasonable life. I mean, like I said, I wouldn't mind living in one of these myself. And then we got asked to go to Sierra Leone. It's a Waldorf school. The Germans designed a $2 million building for them, and of course nobody could raise money for it. So somebody, we don't know who, but it's because of some of this stuff out on the YouTube and things like that. Somebody said that out of Hollywood, and we don't know who, said they'll finance the school if the Ership boys would build it. And so we said, yeah, we'll do it. And of course it wasn't $2 million, it was like 100 grand or so. And so we went to Sierra Leone and did the flower. And it doesn't need a solar face because there's no heating necessary down there. So again, we're working for repetition so that people can replicate. That's something we're trying to learn, and we are starting to learn it. Not just to go do stuff and leave, but to go do stuff and you're really planting a seed, like Michelle's talking about planting seeds. We're planting a seed of knowledge that hopefully will grow. We've planted many of them that haven't grown. Here is a case where we planted a seed and it grew. So they showed you the building.
We got the
this
invitation
is the
to
Sierra
come to
Leone
a school
story.
in Sierra Leone, and we did the plans for it, and we started working it out, and we saw this thing looks like a flower. They're all rooms centered around a water core with the toilet facilities on the outer edges going to the botanical cells. The most important thing that happened with this design, and this is the first time we've been successful at this in over 40 years of trying, we went there with a limited budget to Sierra Leone. We taught them these 3 or 4 operations that are necessary to build this, and we left after 2 petals of the flower were done, and at this point I hear that they're on the 6th one. So we have finally succeeded in making something so simple and so right on that people locally can replicate it.
Well, we had the opportunity in Sierra Leone to work on building classrooms for a already established Waldorf-based school. Their current classrooms are basically sort of stick buildings with tarps around them. You know, they needed something more substantial that could help provide for the students. So we went there, we shipped a container, and then brought all the tools ourselves and intended to hit the ground and just go nuts on this building, but our container never made it. And our tools disappeared on sort of an hourly rate from the site. It did offer some challenges. For example, we were pounding tires with like roots and sticks.
This is what we got to work with, man. This is what we got to work with.
On the other hand, if we can't build it out of local tools and local materials, then honestly it's not worth building.
What are you guys working on?
Bottle bricks. They get more light in the classroom.
So it was a very successful project. We did complete in 10 days 2 very secure classrooms made out of ferrocement vaults and tires, catching water, making power. Such an upgrade from their current classrooms, especially the toilet situation. We left them with 2 good, healthy toilets with septic tanks and a good shower situation with a gray water planter. Their current structures were temporary. They served the purpose, but they weren't going to be there forever. We left something that is substantial and will provide a space for the kids and the teachers pretty much forever.
Michael said he wants this structure to stand the test of time. Like these other structures, after 5-6 years, it has to be repaired. But he said that will not happen there.
Sierra Leone is a unique and inspiring project because we did 25% of the work. We left 75% of the work there for them to finish. We've never left a building and had it been completed by the locals that we've trained. They are taking it the rest of the way by themselves. That is the true goal, to leave people with skills and knowledge and then empower them to carry on.
All right, so that's basically it. We're thinking that you guys can finish this building, and we'll be available for people to talk to us by phone or email if you have questions.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
I thank you for your support, and I believe that this project will blossom and grow and prosper. I want to thank these children because they are here. It is for them that we are here. And I pray that these children will really take our footsteps. And where we are lacking, they will fill the gap. And where there is conflict, they will come in to push the nation forward. I just want to thank the leaders. I give God all the glory. Thank you very much for all those who have supported us.
They finished it. I'll run through a bunch of quick pictures here, but I'll show you the finished product that they did. Their work was better than ours. There's their classroom. That's what we left them with. And everybody got involved, even the kids, as well as the thing that we did here that we are trying to replicate now everywhere is having 8 or 10 people be right with us day in and day out. And then it's long enough for the seed to take hold. These are some of the guys that finished the building. And girls. We showed them the mechanical stuff, how to do the toilets as well. Took them through a couple of them. And we had 30 or so students come down there. I didn't think anybody would come down there. It's a dangerous place. But they came, and the whole formula worked for us and students and them to do something for them. These are the people that finished it. As they're throwing you up in the air like that, when they get done, there's nothing left in your pockets. Note to self, don't carry your passport in your pocket. So the regional education people had good things to say. It was really a definite step up from the tents. And a great learning experience for us. We got to try out the flower, of course. And of course, Phil or somebody told you about the kid who, what kid in school talks like this about his schoolroom? And there's the team that finished it. And there's what it looks like now. So it's like their work is better than ours. So that's probably the most successful we've been. Not just building a building, but planting a seed and having the seed continue to grow. And we're coming back saying that's what we need to do here too. We need this is knowledge that we've sort of acquired and information, and that's kind of what we're doing now, and that's why it's thrilling to be involved with UNM, and our academy is taking off, and we don't have to be a licensed architect anymore. So we did the same flower in Malawi, and we're going back there in January to finish it.
Land of paradise,
I won't go through the whole Malawi, it's the same thing. Ushuaia, Kirsten showed you. This is what you're going to see out there. It's the Eve compound. I don't think anybody mentioned what the Eve compound is. It's Ership Village Ecologies, but it is the 2 acres that we fought for 4 years to get to be a sustainable testing site. We told the New Mexico legislature, as we said, New Mexico is the state where they blew away 10,000 acres to test the atomic bomb. Why can't we take a couple of risks on 2 acres to test sustainable housing for people? And so I hammered that for 4 years, and finally they passed the law, and Bill Richardson signed it, and I think it was really just to get me to not be down there anymore. But it is, so because of this, we're able to take what we learn in Haiti and Sierra Leone and wherever back to New Mexico and implement it here for a cold climate and actually learn something. And that's what the buildings that you see that are going to be called simple survival buildings, you'll see, they are they're the buildings that we learned how to do from the third world countries and perfected on the sustainable testing site. And Kirsten showed you Easter Island. That's our up and coming. It's taken the flower to a new level to be a music school. And then the day after the morning after the typhoon hit in the Philippines, I was sketching on a napkin at my kitchen table because we had learned how to do a windproof building to some extent after Hurricane Rita. That taught us something. Like I say, these things are our education. So we made what we call the wind ship. And I hear that we went and put it up in 10 days. We're going back in February to do the finishes. And I hear that the government officials down there are asking for drawings so they can replicate it because it didn't blow away in the recent typhoon. And it's not going to blow away, he said. But it's a wind foil, see? It's not resisting the wind. It's kind of treating the wind in a keto manner where it just redirects the wind. And that's why it will probably stand. So this is what we got done in 10 days in the Philippines. Funded now with our own method of funding, which is basically the people that go with us, we all fund it together. And that way we don't have to wait for, Oprah Winfrey to come through with $1 million or something. But it's the same techniques. There's the wind ship. There's what it looks like now. And not really, it's actually grown up around it. That's what we left them with after 10 days. And that's our crew. We always have like an army of people. And it started growing up all around it, and we're going back to do the finishes, but it is enclosed in terms of the rooms. We found one other thing that we need to address now. We keep learning more about what we need to learn, essentially. The wind ship is nice. The things we did in Sierra Leone are nice. The Haiti thing is nice. 10,000 is a lot better than 400,000. But the real truth is, in these countries, they don't have any money. 10,000, it may as well be $1 million. They don't have it. So we have now started trying to take these concepts and put them to use with zero money. And that's what this is. When we go back to finish the wind ship in the Philippines, we will be making a couple of buildings that are just from the stuff that's around there, no hardware store stuff, no anything, just building a couple of buildings. Because what they're in right now down in the Philippines, all around where we made the school, is where they made the wind ship, is little tarp shacks that just blow away in the slightest wind, and then they rebuild them. Well, this they can build as quickly and as cheaply as a tarp shack, but it won't go away. And it's using things that we have learned, putting them together in a much more simple way, which then gives us information to bring them back here and do things cheaper here. So in all, at the other end of the stick, which is where your tour is going to end up today, is the Phoenix, which is a flamboyant application of all of this. A good thought here. It's been said that learning to make fire is the most important point in human history, and people promptly begin burning everything in sight. And that's what we're doing. So have a good time on the tour and think of these things as you're looking at these buildings. Thanks for coming.
Hello. All right. So we're going to do a little Q&A. So if you have a question, please raise your hand, and I will run over to you and let you ask your questions. Anyone? What? Have we been that good? Here we go.
So is the reason why the Erships are in the TP area, is that because they only let you guys build them out there? Or can they be built in a similar area?
Around here, they can be anywhere except right in town. The historic committee in town won't allow it. But they're all over Taos County.
Okay.
And all over New Mexico. And all over the United States.
Oh, all right. Thank you.
You can see some of them along Blueberry Hill.
Hi, I'm wondering about the issues with the blackwater cell and what you can grow on there as opposed to growing in the gray water cells. If there are different plants, can you grow vegetables? What's the contamination risk, or how is that managed?
Well, first of all, you can grow anything. You're asking, can you eat it, right? The plants of any kind grow really well in these things because the nutrients are in there other than just straight chlorine-filled water. Then we had, Michelle did this, she didn't mention it, I guess. Michelle got hooked up with a professor at some university, I forget which one it was, maybe Wisconsin, University of Wisconsin, and he was a doctorate person, and she sent the food grown in Blackwater to him, and he told her how to send it in special containers and everything. He tested it all, and it was all non-measurable in harmful E. coli. So really, this process of going through botanical cells with roots oxygenating the water and then coming up through the roots, the whole biology of that cleans the water. What you hear about, when you hear about E. coli poisoning spinach, even here in the developed USA, and things like that, spinach crops, it's due to a sewage system getting loose and running on the surface of the land and getting on the leaves. But when the black water is gone through an anaerobic process in a septic tank, that anaerobic process itself kills E. coli. And so this whole process of filtration in these botanical cells results in edible food. And Michelle has a thick report from this physicist, biologist, on proving it. So it's edible. But test your own. Don't take our word for it. Yeah.
This question is specifically developed towards multi-unit development, because I may be wrong and I'd be interested in you speaking to it, but it seems to me that both in terms of persuading the vast course of humanity who are living in urban centers to live in a more sustainable way, and in terms of concentrating the complexity of systems to where many of the people who live in houses, on the first day here we had a discussion of setting up solar systems in which the users can't maintain past the first couple of months. How have you given thought or worked at a more multi-unit development where the complexity is concentrated, where a more trained person could manage it and make it so that other people can go about the other aspects of their life?
Well, we did show one picture of this village, long linear village, and we have others that go up. We have a method of taking this global model Ership, again, you're using the same, it's a formula house. So you take this same formula, and we have structurally figured a way to take it up 3, 4, 6, 10 stories. So it can be done in urban situations, and but still, it's a unit. It's a contained, self-contained unit. And what I have, this is my opinion, but the way I'm looking at it now, these systems are so simple, and they're 8th grade physics and biology. So there's no need for infrastructure and sharing systems, because you share systems, you share a cistern with somebody, they take more showers than you, you're going to be knocking on their door, because they're using up the water that you're having to share. It's easy to have all your own stuff. It's just like, to me, it's like if you tried to hook up all of your bodies, to work with one digestive system or something. It's going to be a mess. So it's easy to do this individually, and the lack of infrastructure is what makes it work. And so all we do is plug in the global model Ership to multi-story stuff.
Next question.
I was wondering more about the food production side of things. If the plants that you grow here in Taos are different than the ones you can grow in other regions, like in Alberta, for example. And then also if the planters that are hung, like the buckets, if they use gray water as well, or if that's more fresh water.
First question is, the environment that we're creating with this global model Ership, our standard formula Ership, whatever you want to call it, is the same climate anywhere. In other words, if we do it up in northern Canada, or we do it here, or wherever we do it, we are still trapping something like 70-degree climate with a lot of moisture to grow stuff. So you can grow anything, anywhere is what it amounts to. You got bananas growing. We got a community up in the mountains above Valdez, 10,000 feet, and we got bananas up there. I mean, so it can be, you can grow these fruits and vegetables anywhere on the planet, and they're inside, so they're away from bugs, rabbits, and things like that, and you're producing your own food. And because food is really being produced for money, and that makes it full of chemicals and preservatives and huge carbon footprint from shipping and everything. So you can really produce a lot of food in these. The hanging buckets just make it so you can produce another whole level of food. And yes, you can pump the gray water up to water them, or you can water them with fresh water. And so we're just like, see, the way I'm seeing it, and I get, pretty warped views of things because I'm a fanatic, I guess, but, architects today make buildings, and they'll put a token ficus tree over in the corner to have a plant in the building. You see any new building, it's got a few plants to recognize the plant world or whatever. But as we continue to destroy the Amazon rainforest, acres every day, in the future, we're going to see and recognize that we need plants so badly that we are going to be making buildings for plants. And if we're lucky, over in the corner, there'll be a hammock that we can sleep in.
Michelle, would you like to add anything to that? You covered it. All right. Next question. Anyone?
Yeah, how do you think these would, do you think it would be possible to have a cost-competitive Earthship as compared to like a standard construction in, say, a city where codes are applicable?
Well, yes. We struggled for years to get these to work. Then after they worked, we had to make them user-friendly. Then after we made them user-friendly, we had to make them cost-effective. Right now, a global model Earthship costs about the same per square foot as a conventional, well-built, well-insulated, double-glazed home. Like in and that equates to here in this area, they cost about $220, $225 a square foot here. Yes, you can do a stick frame house made out of 2x4s that's going to cost a fortune to operate for less than that, but to build a good adobe building or brick building or whatever here with good insulation and glass will cost about that. In fact, in Santa Fe, it costs $350 a square foot. So they're in the ballpark. The big difference is a standard home is going to have, up to $10,000 a year in utilities, and Earthship is going to have $150 a year total annual utility bill, as well as the security of knowing you're always going to have the utilities, because who knows when they're going to quit coming, so to speak. And of course, that doesn't even take into consideration what conventional utilities do to the planet, like the meltdown of the Japanese nuclear power plant that's ruining the whole northern hemisphere. So they are competitive now, and we got there a few years ago, and we were thrilled. But about the time we got there with making these somewhat competitive in terms of cost is when the big economic crunch hit, and we observed that all housing, even in the developed world, is too expensive. So now that's what we're trying to introduce, what we learn in these third world countries, to try and bring it back to here to get housing to be like a simple survival. The simple survivals that you see, I mean, people have stayed in them all winter. They don't have a heating system whatsoever, and they're 68 degrees, 67 degrees in our 30 below winter. They are easy to build yourself for a younger person, and the one-room version costs about $15,000 in materials. The two-room version, $25,000 in materials. That's even below even talking square foot price. And we're able to build them on the Eve complex. So it's the global model is there in terms of relating to conventional prices, but it's not far enough for us.
Any more questions?
You haven't said a lot about natural lighting. I'm assuming you're getting a fair amount of daylighting in from just the form of the building and the south orientation. Can you say a little bit about that?
Well, yes. Believe it or not, people think, oh, these are buried, they're like a cave. But when you go out there, now the Phoenix is a unique building. Hopefully you're going to go into a couple more. But when you look at a typical bedroom in a house, a window on this wall, a window on that wall, if you're going to do any work in there, you need to turn a light on. In these buildings, you don't need a light on in the daytime. You only need lights at night. And they're, of course, LED lights. So the natural lighting in these buildings makes it so you don't use lights in any of the global models in the daytime. I'm hoping that you'll be able to go into some global models out there. We use the global models as nightly rentals, so we can pay Sentinel Bank. And they are probably, all full. We're going to try and get you all in there before the nightly people check in. But they're light. They're lit up in the daytime.
Bill is talking about this, the layering, adding extra layers. Is that, I'm assuming that's going to affect the lighting a little bit because it's going to have to pass through.
Not so much, because it does affect it a little bit, but not so much because the layering is designed to follow the angle of the winter sun. So the winter sun is not messed with at all. No matter how many layers you go out, they just get higher and higher. And the summer sun is blocked, but you kind of want that bright summer sun here in New Mexico to be blocked, so you have a shady place to hang out that's comfortable. So it's the same principles that make these buildings, the same physics principles that make these buildings warm in the winter also are used in a different way to make them cool in the summer.
I have a question. Has your crew or yourself ever looked into the possibility of doing hydrogen fuel cells for your own gas production, or is there any feasible technology out there, being it's our most abundant element?
We've been asked that question a lot. There's no problem. When that's available by us or somebody else, we'll use it. In other words, we're not locked into anything. If somebody came along that had a way of making a structural thermal wall that was better than tires, I'd be doing it in a heartbeat. I mean, we're ruthless in pursuing this. And so the minute hydrogen is available and economically feasible, we would be using it. But right now, the solar power systems are really, here's an interesting thing that has happened. We designed the solar power systems to work with the regular halogen light bulbs. And then we got a little better when they came out with compact fluorescents, and they became available in all the Home Depots and hardware stores and everything. Well, now they've come out with LEDs, and they use a fraction of the light, and all of a sudden we're changing all to LED light bulbs, which are 1/15 of the power usage that compact fluorescents and halogens and all that use. And what we have now is a surplus of power. We have these buildings that were designed for more inefficient light bulbs. We put efficient light bulbs in them all through the house, and we got power we don't know what to do with, so we're starting to cook with it.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Oh, come.
So when you're building an Earthship in the U.S., where do you go to collect all the bottles and tires and recycled materials? Do you just go over to the landfill, or you just kind of keep collecting them in your house? Or?
Different ways. First of all, we never have a problem. Like here, we go to Silva's Tires, OK, Big O Tires, whatever, and we get their tires because they have to pay to take them to the dump. Sometimes people even pay us to take the tires. We go to the recycling centers and we buy the cans from them before they crush them. And so we have to pay a penny a can. No big deal. It's cheaper than a brick. Bottles, we go to the breweries, to the recycling centers, and plastic bottles the same way. Basically, in the developed world now, we tap in to many situations that are already in place for recycling. Saves us the labor of running around collecting. But in third world countries, a lot of that is not in place, so there's where we get the kids to run around and collect the garbage.
I'm wondering where the high cost of construction in the U.S. is coming from, since your materials are, wildly abundant. Is it just the systems, the energy systems, water systems?
No, we're trying to make money here. No, you're using. People ask that question a lot. You're building this building out of garbage. Why does it cost so much money? There's still a lot of glass. We spend a lot on insulation. We have double layers of glass, double layers of double glass. We go crazy with insulation. Then there's the ceilings and the roofs, and there's a lot of materials, and in systems materials. Actually, without the off-grid utilities, these buildings are essentially cheaper than a regular house. It's 60 grand worth of utilities that bring them back up to be on par with existing costs. So the breakdown of these, other than just flat saying they're they're around $225 a square foot, is that 40% of it is materials, glass and insulation and wood and concrete and metal roofing and stuff, and 40% of it is labor. And then the other 20% is systems and subcontractors and things like that. So the buildings do have quite a bit of conventional material. The numbers on that are like they're 50-50. They're 50% conventional materials and 50% recycled materials. So if it weren't for the recycled materials, attaining this level of physics in thermodynamics would cost a lot more. The recycled materials is what helps us bring these on par with existing housing.
Yes, I was wondering, what is your opinion on retrofitting conventional homes and buildings? Because obviously we can shave down cities to build Earthships, and what would your opinion be on the current infrastructure? Is there something to do with that, using the 6 principles or something like that?
Yeah, it's a great question. I was not interested in that because it was more fun to build Earthships. The question was, what about retrofitting existing buildings, recognizing the fact that we can't mow down the 20 billion buildings that are on this planet right now and build Earthships? And that's a great question. So what I'm saying is, it wasn't that interesting to me because I'd rather build Earthships, but it got interesting to me because seeing that we could build Earthships at 10,000 a week for the next 10 years and it wouldn't scratch the surface of how many buildings are here. So retrofit has to happen. And yes, you hit the nail on the head. You take these principles, you get well versed at them, and you apply them to existing buildings. And we have done it from Norway to Arizona to Belize to all over the place. We have done it. And what we're finding is that without spending too much money but you must have a really well understanding of these principles to not get too far out of line in costs, you can cut your utility bill by 50%, conservatively speaking. And then do the math there. If everybody on the planet in the developed world cut their utility bill, their utility use, their fossil fuel use by 50%, we'd be okay for another 100 years. So retrofitting is a definite way that has to be explored, and we're doing some of it.
I read in Mother Earth News how several people are harvesting methane from septic systems. Have you looked into this?
Yeah, we get that question a lot. We've toyed with it, and we almost got to the point of doing it, but that's when we got all this surplus of power from LED bulbs. We were going to do it because we have one use of propane. We cook with it in addition to solar ovens, but we've been cooking with propane. That's the $120 a year utility bill that you have in a global model Ership. So yes, we wanted to go and harvest that $120 worth of gas from the sewage, and it's easily done. But then we hit this thing of the LED bulbs giving us a surplus of electricity, so now we're cooking with electrical induction cooking and not needing any gas. So it's still something that is worth exploring and demonstrating. It hasn't made it to the top of our list, but it's a great point.
Do we have any more questions? Oh, let me get one more.
I know in the third world builds, you were saying that you use like a very simple plumbing system. And I was wondering if you have a concept in your mind of what you think would be the ideal model in terms of, would there be a shower or would there be a flush toilet, or is the bucket flush what you're going for, or what you think is like the best standard in that regard?
Well, there must be a warm water shower for everyone. That's what we're finding out. A lot of the people in the third world countries don't care, but everybody in this country wants a warm shower. They don't have to have a tremendous amount of pressure, so you have to have the simple system to make a warm shower, and you have to have a flush toilet. We went through compost toilets. Only a very few people want to play with a compost toilet. So we went to solar toilets, and I could tell you lots of stories about malfunctioning solar toilets. When you start to fry shit, you get into a whole new world. And so we end up with the flush toilet that flushes We didn't want to use a flush toilet because it uses precious water. And we saw no reason to do that. And we didn't want to use a flush toilet because it puts water into the underground like Phil was talking about this morning. Well, when we invented this system, we aren't flushing with fresh water, and we aren't putting water into the underground, so now I'm all for the flush toilet. And I like the bucket flush toilet because the bucket never wears out. All the goodies in the back tank of your toilet, I bet you 50% of the people in this room, you could go home and your toilet tank is probably leaking a little and running. I had a guy that got fined $3,600 on a public water system for his toilet running, and he didn't really do anything about it for 3 months. And in the third world countries, they have the tanks, but nothing's in them, and it's all rusted and whatever. A bucket never wears out, and it flushes it just the same. But that's a hard sell. So flushing the toilet with a regular toilet and tank with gray water is an easy way to integrate this thinking into what people already are doing. I learned a lot of that the hard way. I learned everything the hard way. But I learned a lot of that the hard way by trying to make these ideas that I thought were great and trying to introduce them to people, and they're too radical for them. You know, I've been doing this for 20, 30 years, 40 years, so this doesn't seem radical to me, but you take it to some, couple that wants a house for themselves and a bank loan and everything. It's too radical, and it's not going to work for them. We have to integrate this thinking not only into the belief system of the people, but into the nightmare system of insurance, bank loans, and building codes.
All right, everybody. Thank you so very much. And please, let's thank Michael for his time.